The young people in China are increasingly defying the Communist Party. Among those born in the late 90s, half have already decided not to have children. In those born after the year 2000, there could be an astonishing 60 to 70% choosing not to have children. Among couples who registered their marriages last year, 40% do not intend to have children. As for the newborns last year, 40 to 45% were the second child of couples who already had one. As the post-2000 and post-2010 generations come of age, the low fertility level will be more pronounced, and the fertility rate could plummet. Currently, no natural increase in China's population can be observed. According to a survey conducted this year by a research institution in Guangdong province, only 11% of the young women believe they must get married, with over two-thirds considering marriage as unnecessary. A netizen mentioned that out of the 15 female students in their class, fewer than 5 wish to have children. This sentiment is not limited to one province. In fact, in China's first and second tier cities, the choice of remaining singles and with no child has already surpassed 65% in 2021. In the 4 major cities of Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, the single rate among marriage-eligible individuals even exceeded 75%, with Shenzhen leading at an astonishing 85.45%. Marriage and childbirth, 2 elements once deemed indispensable in life, are silently fading among China's youth. In 2017, China hit its peak in the number of marriages and newborns. However, in just 6 short years, by 2022, these figures have sharply declined by 40% and 50% respectively. The specter of negative population growth is looming over China. Meanwhile, Chinese aged 65 and above make up over 14% of the total population, steadily advancing towards the critical 20% threshold. With the decrease in marriages and the younger population, China's economy seemed to be on the brink of stagnation. While the Chinese government has been encouraging young people to marry and have more children, Chinese youth are still reluctant. In such a scenario, the Chinese Communist Party might take drastic measures. The future for the post-2000 and post-2010 generations could be tough, and the next 3 to 5 generations of Chinese youth may well become the greatest sacrifice of the communist authorities. Then, what's the reason young people don't want to get married? In the jungle of China's city, a wave of youth hustles through daily commutes and work, entrenched in the grueling 996 work culture. Come the weekends, they are more inclined to seek worldly pleasures with friends than to participate in tedious blind dates arranged by their parents. As the search for a partner is seemingly endless journey, for decades after the initiation of China's reform and opening up, the aspirations of the young generation have diversified. Luxury cars, villas, overseas travel, 5-star hotels, designer handbags, and even cosmetic surgery have all become targets of their pursuits. Particularly in the digital realms of major cities like Beijing and Shanghai, a group of well-educated, highly qualified, and attractive young women, approximately 1 million or 10% of the female population of the same age bracket, follow the lives of the super rich on various social media platforms, reveling in their generous wealth. For the remaining 90% of women, if they wish to acquire wealth, marriage seems to be the only route. However, ordinary young men with their bleak prospects for career advancement struggle to meet the expectations of these women who yearn for a high material lifestyle, complete with houses and cars. As a result, these men opt for lying flat, essentially giving up on marriage. Today's young people in China are undeniably exhausted. They bear the pressure of aligning with the world, having experienced 16 years of high-intensity learning, only to discover that much of the knowledge acquired is virtually useless in society. This fills their lives with a profound sense of defeat. Many of them, possibly encompassing 30 to 40% of the youth, are even diagnosed with depression. Despite such circumstances, they continue to harbor dreams, hoping to make a mark in society. But society gives them even harsher blows. They witness skyscrapers rising like bamboo shoots after a spring rain, admire the prosperity of the wealthy and the Fortune 500 companies, and see the mountain-like wealth of the government officials' families. But for themselves, apart from low-level, low-wage jobs, other opportunities are virtually non-existent. As a result, many university graduates choose to pursue master's or doctoral degrees, hoping to delay their entry into this high-pressure society. However, even those with master's or doctoral degrees fail to truly experience society's prosperity. They are compelled to work in low-level departments such as urban management and neighborhood committees, and even some undergraduates face the predicament of unemployment, resorting to freelancing. A post-millennial expressed on the Chinese forum Zihu, "I don't want to have children. After experiencing the college entrance examination and postgraduate entrance examination, I am drained. I just want to live a peaceful life, live with some cats and dogs, grow some vegetables. I've started to prioritize my health, and before I die, I will donate all the money I've earned to those in need. Life is my own, and nothing is mandatory, so it is okay to just live it the way I like." Since 2019, China's economic situation has been far from optimistic. With economic growth rapidly declining, the workload for young people is increasingly burdensome. While income becomes progressively less, take Tianjin, one of China's direct administered municipalities, for instance. According to 2022 statistics, the median average salary in Tianjin is only 4,200 yuan per month, equivalent to 330 USD. And for those under 25, this figure is even lower, hovering between 3,900 to 4,000 yuan. Compared to the high cost of living, such income levels are incredibly lacking. In the eyes of this generation of young people, there's no trace of joy or happiness. Their gaze penetrates endless effort and hopeless work, only to behold beautiful women, the wealthy and the privileged offspring who are indulging in an affluent lifestyle that remains out of their reach. Their hearts are torn apart, drowned in agony, and they fervently wish in their hearts that they may be the last generation in this cycle. However, we need to delve deeper. Why do they choose not to marry or have children? What motivates them to have children? What is driving them not to perpetuate the seed of life? The goals and motivations of the government encouraging people to have children and those of the people themselves wanting to have children are different. This discrepancy reveals a fundamental contradiction in Chinese society. In essence, the contradiction between the public productization and the population and the atomization of society is intensifying, leading to the current low fertility rate. The public productization of population means that every child born is the Communist Party's, while the atomization of society implies that each individual has their aspirations and dreams. From the government's perspective, the more children people have, the more likely China's economy will thrive, and the quality of life is more likely to improve. This idea has been propagated among the people for a long time. However, the actual situation is not so. If we look back at the past few decades, China's birth rate has steadily declined, but economic growth does not exhibit the same linear increase or decrease. In other words, the birth rate is not the only factor affecting China's economic performance, and not even the main one. So, what are the main influences on China's economy? If we carefully observe a statistical chart reflecting China's economic growth, we will find that the per capita GDP at 3 time nodes has significant growth, namely 1980, 1990, and 2000. So what happened at these 3 nodes? In 1980, the reform and opening up policy created the first wave of economic growth. In 1990, after the Tiananmen Square incident, China's situation began to stabilize and the international community reconsidered investing in China, sparking the second wave of economic growth. In 2000, China joined the World Trade Organization, established an export trade economy, and gave birth to the third wave of economic growth. Clearly, these 3 key events triggering economic growth have nothing to do with the birth rate, but are closely related to political and policy changes. So China's economic growth is more influenced by political environment changes and economic policy adjustments, while the birth rate and other factors such as labor force, currency, etc. are only auxiliary influences. Taking this into account, the Communist Party's encouragement for young people to have children evidently has ulterior motives. After enforcing the one-child policy for 35 years, the CCP realized a sudden drop in China's population, which not only made China's economic development unsustainable, but could also shake the political foundation of the CCP's rule. Zhao Lingjian, a spokesperson for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, once claimed that the Chinese people are the Great Wall of Steel for the Communist Party. Following this logic, the thicker this wall, the better. The more people in the Communist Party governs, the safer its rule. Why is this so? A former leader of the CCP provided an explanation. Suppose one day the Communist Party collapses and China falls into chaos. Even if only half of the population becomes refugees, that would be over 700 million people. If these refugees were to flee to neighboring countries, such a massive population movement would be a disaster for any nation. Countries neighboring China and those in the West are well aware of this, so they often turn a blind eye to the CCP's human rights abuses within the country, allowing the Communist Party to hold 1.4 billion Chinese people as hostages. So, a large population is actually a crucial bargaining chip for the CCP, which is the true source of their ruling confidence and strength. Thus, from the CCP's perspective, the more people in China, the better for them. Simultaneously, the population is seen not merely as a numerical figure, but an enormous and inexhaustible resource, arguably surpassing the value of natural resources, minerals, natural gas, and oil. A massive population leads to the world's largest genetic pool, including human genetic data, stem cells, serum, organs, etc. These resources could be utilized for scientific data collection or traded, serving a multitude of purposes. In essence, population resources are China's most valuable and core asset, the largest social public product, the foundation of the Communist Party's power, and their source of strength. Therefore, the Chinese government encourages population growth. They believe that the larger the population, the more secure their reign will be. However, the issue lies in the significant social transformation that China has undergone over the past few decades. A notable change is evident in the household structure, shifting from an average of 4.4 person per household to a historical low of 2.6. Furthermore, since 2004, the number of single-person households has been on the rise, surpassing 25% nationally, accounting for 125 million households in 2022. This illustrates that China is now a scattered and highly individualized society, reflecting an increasing sense of social alienation. This growing social alienation is manifested in an individual's loss of value within society, declining participation in social activities, decreasing acceptance of traditional values, and inadequate fulfillment of social obligations. The recent decline in China's birth rate is also a manifestation of this intensified social alienation. In ancient societies, resistance to social alienation often dependent on religious beliefs and familial communities. In modern Western society, extensive social organization bridge interpersonal relations, integrating individuals into the broader social fabric to counter social alienation. However, in China, due to political reasons, these intermediary organizations were demolished decades ago by the Chinese Communist Party. The current Chinese government does not permit the existence of such social intermediary organizations. This leads to a society comprising only the government and individuals. As the distance between individuals and society increases, a so-called lying flat or doing the bare minimum culture is prevalent among young people. This is in fact the fruit of seeds sown by the CCP decades ago. This also explains why Chinese people are increasingly unwilling to have children. It's not due to rising costs, but because after 40 years of reform and opening up, the people are less and less obedient to the party. If they think that having children is not their best interest, they won't do it. So, how can this problem be solved under a market economy? A common approach would be to transform China into a high welfare, high security society, making the younger generation feel that having children is worthwhile. However, the main goal of China's current fiscal policy is to achieve national rejuvenation and unification with Taiwan. Among other external actions, investing heavily in improving the birth rate would erode military and stability maintenance funds, making the central government system unstable, which the CCP cannot afford. The only feasible solution is to revert to the pre-reform era, where society was entirely controlled by the government, devoid of market economy and privatization. In such a situation, the government wouldn't face any challenges nor need to pay high fiscal cost, yet could still encourage people to have children. There's a saying that sums it up well. The government controls the heavens, the earth, and the air in between. And at night, it even controls the reproductive organs of men and women. The final solution to China's birth policy might be intensified brainwashing to encourage childbirth for the nation, with punishment for refusal. This paints a rather ominous future.